Parshas Miketz. What's the deal with Pharaoh's dreams? Why is he so freaked out? Why does he get so agitated when he dreams? Let's go over it. It's 2 years after the end of Parshas of the events at the end of Parshas Vayeshev. That's Miketz Shnosayim Yomim. At the end of 2 years. And Pharaoh dreamed, and he's standing by the river, and there are 7 cows that are fat and healthy, and they fed in the marsh grass, and then 7 other cattle come up out of the river. They are ugly and skinny, and they stood by the healthy cows, and the ugly and thin, skinny cows ate up the 7 healthy fat cows. It's a little troubling. And then, so Pharaoh wakes up and goes back to sleep. He dreams a second dream. In the second dream, you have 7 heads of grain coming up on one stalk. They're all healthy. They're all solid. They're all good. And then another 7 heads of grain, thin, blasted with the east wind, so they're not the picture of health. They sprung up after them. And the thin heads of grain, stalks, swallow up the 7 healthy and full ears. Pharaoh wakes up, and it's a dream. Okay. And then in the morning, vatipo'em rucho. His spirit was beating. They said like his heart was pounding. He was alarmed. Why was he alarmed? So much so that he calls an emergency session of his cabinet. He calls all the Chartumei Mitzrayim and its Chachamim, the magicians and the wise men, his National Security Council. He calls them all together. And nobody could interpret his dream. The Medrash says, actually, that many interpreted his dream, but he wasn't listening. You're going to have 7 daughters. You're going to bury 7 daughters. You're going to conquer 7 nations. They're going to conquer you. And he didn't accept any of it until Yosef comes along and gives him the interpretation that there are going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, and he should do something about it. What is it about these dreams that freaked out Pharaoh? Rav Schwab asks this. He says, anybody who reads this is going to say, what is it? I mean, everybody has dreams. Everybody has dreams that are strange. The Gemara says in Brachos that there's no such thing as a dream without empty, meaningless things in it. You don't need the Gemara to tell you that. I mean, the Gemara does tell you that, but everybody knows they dream crazy things. So why is it about this that it calls for emergency session of his cabinet? So Rav Schwab says, Rav Shimon Schwab in מעין השואבה, he says that Pharaoh is a ruler who has confidence in his power. And it's the nature of the world that the strong consumes the weak, that the strong controls the weak, that the healthy prevails over the sick. And this was just the opposite. Rabbi Soloveichik says that Pharaoh, like all tyrants, says Rav, had a fear of uprising, had a fear that the people would rise up, rebel, revolt, and would dethrone the king. So this is a subconscious fear of Pharaoh. Pharaoh sees vivid imagery, appropriate for a horror movie perhaps, cows eating cows, and stalks eating stalks, and he says there's something wrong here, and it resonates with him in a fear inspiring way, because this is not the way of the world as he understands it, and it's not the way of the world as he needs it to be. He's counting on power retaining power. Rav Schwab also says that this is why Miketz is generally read on Shabbos Chanukah, when we celebrate Rabim biad ma'atim, Tameim biad tahorim. We celebrate the victory of the few against the many, of the weak against the powerful. And this is symbolic. These dreams are symbolic of that concept. Now, Yosef interpreted it differently, but the symbolism nevertheless remains. So when we're talking about the weak overcoming the powerful, this is a key to understanding that Hanukkah is not just a historical event. It's not just a commemoration of a historical event, although it certainly is. And it's not just a commemoration of God's intervention in history, although it certainly is. It's also reflective of a principle that can inform us and inspire us. And that is that all of us, every single one of us, has a struggle with our Yetzer Hara, in whatever form it is. Lashon Hara, laziness, Tefillah b'tzibur, fill in the blank, honesty, whatever it is. We all meet our foil daily. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is our constant companion. And sometimes, in our struggle, we have come to believe that there's just no way that we're going to overpower the Yetzer Hara. We have succumbed so many times that we've made clear which is the dominant force and which is the submissive force. And some of us may think that the Yetzer Hara will always get the best of us, at least in certain areas. The message of Hanukkah is that we can use the light of Torah, the light of Ruchnius, Kadosh Baruch Hu's light, Ner Mitzvah v'Torah Or. We can use the light of the Torah to inspire us. And it is possible, despite what appears to be a law of nature, that the powerful always prevails. It is possible to prevail against the powerful. It's possible to prevail against the forces of nature. This is true on a political level. We saw it happen with Eretz Yisrael, with Medinas Yisrael, Hakamas HaMedina in 1948, and again in 1967, where what appeared to be the more powerful forces ended up being overcome by the weaker forces, the ostensibly weaker forces. And it's true on an intensely personal level that we can, as Rav Ahron used to say, galvanize our potential and overcome the forces that would keep us down, the forces of nature, our own base inclinations. We have the power to do that. And we can do that when we are enlightened by the Torah and inspired by Hanukkah to overcome the odds and to prevail. Have a good Shabbos.